Evening, everyone, or good afternoon, depending on the time zone that you're in. This is the third of our Ask the Expert series sessions that we have done this summer through the Steve Fund. And today our session is called Caring for the Caregiver. If this is your first time joining us, welcome. And if you were with us for the previous sessions, welcome back. Just to kind of recap, both for those who were here and for those who weren't able to join us for those previous sessions, this is a series that we've done this summer focused on our young people, and also this session tonight is about caring for ourselves as parents and caregivers. So our first session was called Holding Space, where we talked about how as parents and caregivers we can create a safe space for our young people to talk to us about their mental health and about their well-being. We know that's so important, particularly with everything that's kind of going on today. And then our second session was called What's Normal and What's Not. We talked about the kind of spectrum of mental health, and the anxiety, sadness, feelings of depression are totally normal to experience at different points in our lives. But then we also know that there can be times when someone may be experiencing like an anxiety disorder or depression, a major depressive disorder. So we talked about some of those differences, and also the fact that with so many stressors going on in our world today, in our country, it can be even harder to kind of understand or to know what's normal and what's not. So today we wanted to carve out this session for you, for caregivers and parents, so that we can talk about caring for ourselves. And I put myself in that category because I am a parent as well. Without further ado, we'll go ahead and get started. We may still have some others that join us. But I wanted to let you all know, if you have not been familiar with the Steve Fund, that the Steve Fund promotes the mental health and emotional well-being of all young people, particularly those from underserved and under-resourced communities, by equipping them, their families, educators, and mental health professionals with the knowledge, skills, and community support needed to achieve their full potential. Excuse me. Our vision is that every young person is fully supported by peers, families, communities, and institutional cultures that value and contribute to their mental health and emotional well-being. For young people from underserved and under-resourced backgrounds, we aim to protect their mental well-being, to equip them with practical tools for resilience, and promote their lifelong success. Our goal is to support them in reaching a healthy, productive adulthood, enabling thriving in academic, personal, and career pursuits that benefit their family, community, and society. So that is about us at the Steve Fund. And I am Dr. Gina Newsom Duncan. I am a mental health expert, the lead mental health expert with our Family Support Initiative at the Steve Fund. And I am our facilitator, your facilitator for tonight. I've been with the Steve Fund for about 3 years. I also am a board certified psychiatrist and psychotherapist in private practice in Charlotte, North Carolina. I'm a graduate of Hampton University, which is an HBCU, and did my medical school degree at the UNC School of Medicine and my residency training at Harvard. As I mentioned, I am also a parent. I'm married and have 2 daughters. My oldest daughter is 18 and is in her second week of college. We just got her moved in a week ago. And then my youngest daughter is 14 and just started high school yesterday. So I've got 2 freshmen. It would be great. I'd asked you all earlier if you could share where you're from, but if you also want to share the ages of your children or young people, that would be great. So we have a sense of, who's here. And I imagine that many of you, like me, are at various stages with your kids and young people, and probably in the process of back to school and all of that. So as a professional and on a personal level, what we're going to be talking about today, the well-being of our young people, but then today the well-being of ourselves as parents and caregivers, is something that is really near and dear to my heart and very passionate about. So I'm looking forward to our conversation. We have 3 objectives that we'll be kind of focusing on today. One is to discuss the importance of self-care as a core component of effective caregiving, right? The second one is to explore internalized beliefs and external pressures that make it hard for caregivers to balance caring for themselves while caring for others. And then the third is to develop strategies for sustainable caregiving and realistic self-care routines to navigate caregiving with more balance and intention. Because as I'm sure many of you can relate with, we can come up with great ideas for the things that we can do for self-care, but the question often comes up like, well, how often am I actually doing that? And what are the barriers, the things that might get in my way when it comes to taking care of myself? So we're gonna dig into that a little bit tonight. All right. And I'm looking here just in the chat. Oh, wow. I see somebody else has an 18-year-old and a 14-year-old, 15, 12, and 8, 15, 17. So we're right here together. I'm so glad to hear that. All right. Two freshmen in college and high school. Okay. So we're kind of in the same boat. And I see here someone has a 31-year-old and an 8-year-old. So big spread, and you may have some knowledge to share with those of us who have not gotten ours quite beyond college yet. So with all of that said, I wanted to share this roadmap for today. We've kind of done our introductions. We're going to talk about the importance of self-care as a caregiver. We're going to talk about barriers to prioritizing and achieving balance in caring for ourselves while caring for others, and then strategies for developing sustainable and realistic self-care practices. And then in our final section, we're going to open it up for Q&A. I wanted to let you all know that the Q&A portion is not going to be recorded. We are recording the presentation portion, and it's going to be available on our website later so that you can, excuse me, review it again, share it with friends and family. But we want the Q&A portion to feel like a safe space for you to ask questions and to engage, to even come off of mute or turn on your camera if you'd like. All right, just a few community values. Please engage as much as possible, as you all already are doing with the chat. Use the raise your hand and function when we get to the Q&A portion. If you want to come off of mute, that's fine. This is a community of growth, so we want to respect and affirm one another. And please keep in mind, I'm sharing some, information with you. I have a certain level of expertise, but there may be things that you have learned in your own personal life and with your young people that you think would be helpful for others to know. So please feel free to share that. We can all benefit from that knowledge. All right. So I wanted to share this quote by Mahatma Gandhi. The best way to find yourself is to lose yourself in the service of others, but remember to keep a part of yourself whole. I'll say that one more time. The best way to find yourself is to lose yourself in the service of others, but remember to keep a part of yourself whole. As caregivers, we often don't have the encouragement, the resources, or tools to effectively identify our mental health needs or the ability to access support to address them. And so that's why at the Steve Fund, we feel that it is so important that our work not only reaches out to young people, but to parents and caregivers, because we know that from our research, parents and caregivers are probably the top support for young people. And so if we as parents and caregivers are not in a good place mentally and emotionally, we can't be there to support our young people. So thinking about the quote that I just shared by Gandhi, what we want to be thinking about today is, as caregivers, how can we ensure that we, A, maintain our own well-being, and B, keep a part of ourselves whole amidst the demands of our caregiving roles? All right. So, for those of you who joined our previous sessions where we were talking about holding space for our young people and about what's normal and what's not when it comes to mental health, one of the things that we acknowledged was that, adolescence and the transition into adulthood, it's a challenging time, and it is intended to be like that. Is the challenges that our young people experience, just hormonal changes and their growing brains and bodies and social experiences, all of that is designed for them to be prepared for adulthood. There are bumps that are inevitable in the path to adulthood and with adolescence. And so oftentimes adolescents and young people, young adults experience challenges like anxiety and depression and other kind of mental health challenges. But I think it's also important to sort of put this into context with the present moment that we're in, where there is so much uncertainty and so much trauma political instability, war and genocide, family separation, mass deportation, traumas of all kinds that are overlaid on top of that. So if you are a parent and caregiver raising children, raising young people right now, trying to help them navigate, this is a challenging time, right, for all of us. And so I just think it's really important to name that. So with that in mind, let's just pause here for a moment and just do a little bit of settling in and just a quick grounding exercise. I'm going to invite you to, just take a moment. You can kind of shift in your seat, just get comfortable. Take a moment here and you can close your eyes and just kind of get settled in your seat. Feel your feet on the floor and the chair or the sofa, whatever you're sitting on, and how that's supporting you. And I just want you to take a couple of cleansing breaths. So we're just going to breathe in through our nose and exhale through our mouths. And let's try that one more time. In through your nose and exhale through your mouth. All right. Hopefully that's helping us to kind of just, transition from whatever else we've had going on earlier in the day to being here in this moment. And I want to do something called a stress test. It's really, really simple. On a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being the worst, right, and 1 being the least, I want you to think about the level of stress that you are under right now in this moment, or maybe over the course of the day. All right, so on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the worst, what level of stress are you feeling right now? It might help to kind of do just a quick body scan, just, thinking about from your head to your toes, paying attention to areas of tension, being mindful of thoughts that are in your mind. And then if you don't mind, share that in the chat. So again, scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the worst, what level of stress are you feeling right now? Are you a 2? Are you a 9.5? Are you a 7? All right, I'm seeing 3. See a couple of 8s, 7. So pretty elevated, right? I would say 7, 8. That's really getting up there. 2.3, 2. Okay. So the reason that I like to do this is that this is one of those moments and opportunities to just do a quick check-in with yourself. Because how often do we go through the day and we're rushing from place to place, maybe from work, taking care of kids, doing other things, and we don't even take a moment to think about how we are feeling in our bodies or the level of stress that we're under. Or maybe we don't think about that until we're like, I'm totally stressed out. So what I would encourage you to do is to do this, make this a practice that you do on a regular basis, and not just when you are super stressed out, but even when you're calm, so you know what that feels like. So when thinking about the level of stress that you may be under, and especially for those of you that said you're a 6 or higher, I'd like you to think about, what is it that you need to let go of right now that may help you release some of that stress. Oftentimes we have stress because we're carrying things that maybe need to go to someone else. We need to delegate it to someone else. We're carrying things that aren't ours. And then the other question, what do I need to pick up? Are there some things today in this session that you were hoping to get out of this time that you think might help you in managing your stress? If so, please share that in the chat, because I definitely want to try to incorporate that. All right. So why is self-care important for caregivers? What do you guys think about this? Well, I have 2 thoughts, and I would say the first reason, number 1, is this quote: "Children learn what they live." All right, this is a quote from Dorothy Law Nolte. She was an author, a poet, and an educator. And I think it's pretty self-explanatory, but basically the idea that, more so than what we tell them, our children learn what is modeled for them. They learn what they experience, right? What they live. And so reason number 2 is that you, as a parent, as a caregiver, you are deserving of rest, peace, and enjoyment. Oftentimes, as caregivers, we get so caught up in caring for everyone else that we feel as though our needs for rest or peace or enjoyment have to take a back seat or go on the back burner. And so I want to challenge that notion today. And sometimes, because of some of the things that we've learned, we're going to get into that in just a moment, the things that we've experienced ourselves, they may have us thinking that it's selfish to take care of ourselves or prioritize our own care over the needs of our family members. But I would just say that these two things are related. Children learn what they live. And so if when we take care of ourselves, that teaches our children that they need to and should take care of themselves. We want them to grow into healthy adults who know how to balance and care for themselves, right? So modeling for ourselves, modeling for our kids is really important. So let's just pause here for a moment and do the self-reflection exercise. And I want you to think and ask yourself, how am I really doing with self-care? All right. So to help you with this, name the last three things that you did that were just for you, not for your kids, not for your spouse, not for someone else, but just for you to take care of you or for your own enjoyment. And if you want to share that in the chat, it'd be great to hear. And I would encourage you, if you've got a piece of paper next to you, maybe jot it down on a piece of paper or put it in your phone um, as well. So yeah, what are the last three things that you did that were just for you? Okay, great. I see. Went for a walk, went to bed, started journaling. Love it. I got my hair done, my nails done, and slept in. I love that too. Love that. All right. Please keep sharing. And I'm so glad to hear that it's not taking too long for you all to identify things, right? Went and got ice cream, took a class, got my hair done, made tea. I did that for myself this evening. Okay, great. Ooh, 2 days off of work. Yes, mental health days or taking a break from work. I love it. All right, so great. Please keep sharing. Now I want you to think. So we've been able to kind of identify some things that you've done recently that were just for you. What barriers keep you from maintaining the self-care routines that you would like to maintain on a regular basis? And I often will think in terms of like healthy eating, cooking, exercise, going to bed at a good time. If you feel like you actually have a really good routine that you are able to maintain this on a regular basis, please share that too, because we would love to know what your tips are for doing that. All right. But so just think, what barriers have tended to keep you from maintaining the self-care routines? I'll share an example. So I love to dance. I used to dance growing up, and I found some Zumba and cardio dance classes at our Y locally. I love to go to them. They have them on Tuesdays and Thursday evenings, and so I was on a roll for a while, really like committing to getting in shape and exercising. But then my oldest daughter was cheerleading, and they started having games on Tuesdays and Thursday nights. And so I ended up missing the class. And now my oldest daughter's graduated. She's gone on to college, but my youngest is playing volleyball. And volleyball games are on Tuesdays and Thursday nights. So that's a routine that I really had wanted for myself, but life kind of gets in the way. Maybe for you, there's something similar. That where things have come up. And the question is, how do we navigate those barriers so we can still make sure that we are getting some healthy self-care routines in? All right, I'm going to check the chat here and then we're going to move forward. All right. Oh, I see you're too tired, too busy, and yeah, too tired, too busy, or too past issues. I see the barrier for me is time and learning that I control my time and how I allocate it. Oh, that's powerful. Yes, and hopefully, I'd love for that to be something that we pick back up on when we get to the Q&A portion. Learning that I control my time and how I allocate it. I see here also barrier, low self accountability. Okay, love it. Okay, so we're gonna move on and come back, but you all are already identifying, I think, some really great things that are going to contribute to this discussion that we're going to have in a bit. So thinking about some of the external pressures, nonstop schedules, right? Doing all the things. I think that certainly for myself as a parent, I know my parents had us in extracurricular activities and things, but I feel like these days it's on another level. They're just expectations and norms around engagement of our kids in extracurricular activities and camps and enrichment programs and making them as competitive as possible for college. I was having a conversation with a patient last week who was sharing that it was just kind of frustrating for her. She's like, I feel like I just barely am, keeping up with things. And, in February, people are asking, what camps did I sign my kids up for July? And she's like, it's February. I don't feel like I get to be in the moment. We're always sort of moving ahead. I think because we have this very connected society and culture now with social media, there's this kind of continual pressure to keep up. For many of us, there may be some cultural and community expectations around what activities we engage in, what things we're doing in the community, whether it's church or religious or faith organizations or other things. And it's kind of, well, this is just what we do. Um, there may be also a feeling of like being compelled to demonstrate certain markers of success, like so the types of activities and the number of activities that your kids participate in. I think largely there has been this normalization of always being on and on the go, whether that's with our jobs, being expected to be answering emails at 10 o'clock at night, um, and just being kind of constantly on the go. And there can be that, FOMO, fear of missing out by not taking on every opportunity that presents itself. So we've talked about some of the external pressures. Now thinking about the barriers that are a little bit more internal, a little more close to home, taking a moment to think about, what was modeled for me, right? Because many of us carry generational and historical trauma, the weight of pain and survival that's been passed down from our ancestors to our grandparents, to our parents, and then to us. And in many of our families, we have been taught to manage painful emotions with unhealthy coping skills, such as, misusing substances, food, binge eating, negative self-talk, etc. Right? So thinking about what was modeled for you. Um, in the Black community, the African American community, there is this term, the strong Black woman stereotype. And actually, it's been written about in the literature. It's a superwoman complex. And whether you are a Black woman or not, many people can probably relate to this. I think many women and mothers in particular, but perhaps men as well, or fathers. The concept here is that there are learned behaviors of overextending. And this, in the case of Black women, has a lot to do with sociological, historical factors, racism, discrimination. But so learned behaviors of overextending and this idea that you have to be the one to keep it all together, being the strong one, the strong friend, the strong family member, taking on too many responsibilities at once, being a caretaker for everyone and putting everyone else's needs above your own. Oftentimes there's perfectionism and overachieving and masking. So the idea that you can't say you're not okay. So saying I'm okay when you're really not. And then feeling the pressure and the success, feeling the pressure of success and achievement and just trying to hold it all together, right? Um, for many of us, and I can speak again for myself personally, I can think of many women in my family, my own mom, my grandmother, that fit many of those characteristics. So that's a lot of what was modeled for me, right? So when we think about what was modeled for us and what we've experienced externally, and we also think about those internalized beliefs. So some of our internalized beliefs come from the things that were modeled for us, the things that we may have literally heard our parents say, like, I'm just not good at um, exercising. I'm just not good at keeping up with X, Y, or Z. And so whether we realize it or not, those words of theirs can kind of become internalized for us. For many of us, that when it comes to self-care, it's the idea is that taking time for myself is selfish. So taking time for myself to blank when blank is selfish, and you can fill in the blank. So here's an example. Taking time for myself to go to the gym when I could be fixing dinner for my family is selfish. right? And I know that my kids are going to get home soon and they're going to be hungry. And if I go to the gym, I won't have it ready. And then what are we going to do? Then and it's all going to be back on, I'm being selfish because I'm taking that time out when I could have been using it towards the benefit of my family. For others, it's, the idea, this is just what I saw my parents do. This is just what it means to be a parent. We just give and give and give of ourselves. It means sacrificing myself for my family, particularly if we haven't seen any other example. Um, Sometimes the internalized belief or the dynamic is that staying busy keeps me from having to think about things that are difficult or traumatic. And so I just kind of going to stay on this hamster wheel and keep going, because if I really pause and then I have to think about everything that may be bothering me or I may be concerned about, it'll feel too overwhelming. Some other thoughts: I'm not capable of creating new habits, and I'm not deserving of self-care. So I am going to just pause here for a second. I'm looking at back in the chat to see if there were any other um, thoughts. I'm seeing a lot of agreement, right? I'm seeing the romanticization of consistently being busy in a grind culture, right? So yeah, please keep sharing. If you have other thoughts about that, if this is resonating with you, please share again in the chat, and we can talk more about it when we get to the Q&A. But I'm just going to take a sip of tea here, and then we're going to talk a little bit about realistic and sustainable self-care as a caregiver. All right. So I find that I do presentations like this quite often and have typically said, can you, if everybody names some things that you do for self-care? And we're usually able to generate a list pretty quickly. I could take a walk, I could read a book, I could journal, I could talk to a friend, or you can list things very easily. But again, it's how often are we able to maintain those things and being realistic. So one of the things I've been really big about lately is the idea of setting intentions and not goals. I do try to regularly go to a yoga class that doesn't conflict with my girls' activity schedules. And the yoga teacher at the beginning of every class, she will have us pause and she'll say, she'll invite us to set an intention for the class that day. And I really like that and have been embracing that because intention has more of a kind of self-compassionate sound to it than like setting a goal. If I set a goal that I'm going to get in bed by 9:30 every night and I fall short of that goal, then I'm going to probably feel like, oh, I'm just not capable of like keeping this as a habit or getting in bed. Whereas if I set the intention, my intention is to get more rest, and I would like to go about doing that by getting in bed earlier. I recognize some nights I may fall short because something came up, but my intention is I want to take care of myself and I want to try to get more rest. So I really want to encourage you to be realistic and compassionate in your expectations of yourself. Um, and then this next part here: prioritize sleep, healthy eating, and exercise without apology. I think we can probably loop back to that when we get into our discussion. But I think that's a really important part, because if we don't feel that we're deserving of it or that everyone else's needs take precedence over ours, then it can be really hard to prioritize these things, because the needs, when you're raising kids or taking care of a family or taking care of others, the needs never really stop. So learning how to be able to set those priorities without apology is the key, but it can often be challenging. Protecting your peace. So unfollowing harmful content, putting some filters on, or even turning off the news or the content feed. There's so much going on, and this is not to say you shouldn't be informed with current events, but just recognizing how things are making you feel. How, is it making your nervous system feel, you know, unsettled and tense? And if you're finding that there's content coming to you through your phone that is making you feel that way, would really encourage you to unfollow it. Release negative spaces or people. And this song here, it's in quotes, "Energy Budget" by Tony Jones. highly recommend that you go to YouTube and type that in and listen to it. It is a fabulous. She has like mantras, and in this particular mantra, she talks about embracing your own peace and space. Engaging in spiritual practices such as prayer and meditation, practicing mindfulness and breathing to stay in the present moment, practicing positive self-talk and daily affirmations, and putting those somewhere that you can see them on a regular basis. And then engaging in counseling or therapy, particularly if you find that the idea, when you really think about it, that the idea of prioritizing yourself is something that you're really struggling with or feeling as though you're not deserving of, counseling or therapy can be so helpful. And I share all with people often. I'm a board certified psychiatrist and therapist, and I have a therapist that I see on a regular basis because life's hard, right? You don't have to have something wrong to benefit from therapy, and particularly in these days, as parents and caregivers, I think all of us benefit from having somebody to talk to. So with this idea of intention setting, it could be, maybe writing this statement down and then filling in the blank with whatever it is that you feel is appropriate for you. But I am setting the intention to get in bed earlier in order to prioritize caring for my mental, physical, and emotional well-being. Because we realize that when we do things like sleep and rest and nourish our bodies, it contributes to our overall well-being, mentally, physically, and emotionally. All right, so we'll pause here for just a moment. Questions for self-reflection, and you're welcome to share this in the chat if you'd like, or to just make a note for yourself. How am I filling my cup so that I can have the capacity, compassion, and care to fill my child's cup, right? And so the idea is that you can't pour from an empty cup, right? So we have to, as parents and caregivers, make sure that there are people and other things in our life that are pouring into us in order for us to keep pouring out for our children and our families. So how am I filling my cup so that I can have the capacity, compassion, and care to fill my child's cup? All right. And then next question. How am I learning to let go of anxiety and control when it comes to my child and to the uncertainty of this time period? So again, acknowledging there's so much going on these days that feels very overwhelming. And for us as parents and caregivers, you know, we don't want our children to feel insecure, even when, because they look to us for the answers, right? And they look to us to know that everything's going to be okay. And sometimes we don't know that everything's going to be okay. And that tension of kind of holding that anxiety that we may feel while also trying to maintain for our kids, it can take a toll on us. I fully support the idea of us being able to be the anchor for our children, but it's also really important that we then have those spaces for ourselves where we can release some of that anxiety, tension, stress, whether it's a therapist or a friend or journal or all of the above. That need for control also is something that often comes up for a lot of us, that it's hard being in a situation of uncertainty because we all like to be able to have a large degree of control, right? So, how to seek help. I mentioned, encouraging folks to take advantage of, if you are able to, see a therapist. If you have concerns from a physical, standpoint, if you're, kind of thinking through some of these exercises and thinking, I've been having some pain or some discomfort physically that I really need to go see my doctor, I really encourage you to go ahead and schedule that. Don't delay put off taking care of your physical health and well-being. For mental health, if you've not met with a therapist before, there are a number of ways you can go about doing that. You can schedule with a therapist directly. Psychologytoday.com is a good resource for that. You can call your insurance company for a list of providers. Just remember, you don't have to do it alone. And the Steve Fund has a crisis text line that is available 24/7. And it is for students and adults. We have trained mental health providers or who are there to answer questions and to take those calls. So if your student or you or anyone else needs to reach out for assistance, text 741-741 or text Steve to 741-741. And then also, if you are not already aware, the 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline is another resource that is available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 a year. I believe we're going to be sharing this in the chat because this is a kind of information dense slide. But, I wanted to acknowledge the fact that with everything that's going on right now, many people are facing job loss, layoffs, maybe loss of insurance. And so accessing therapy for many people has been challenging before and even more challenging now. But there are some really good free and low cost therapy resources that are available, many of which are online, but some that are also available in person through some of these organizations like Open Path Collective and Mental Health America. And then we also have resources that we are sharing on a regular basis through our Steve Fund Family Corner. So we have a new Family Corner website that we launched not long ago. And on that, you can access digital toolkits. We have resources to support families and caregivers in caring for your own mental health as well as your young people. We have a monthly newsletter that we send out and keep it updated with, back to school and holidays and some of the other kind of rhythms that go with the through the school year. So you can sign up to receive the newsletter by going to our website, and want to make sure that you have that information as well. So I want to pause here, and I know that everybody's on mute, but it's okay. You don't have to come off of mute for this, but I would like for us to say together this affirmation, okay? When I care for myself, I teach my child how to care for themselves. When my child cares for themselves, they build the strength to face anything. Let's say that one more time so it sinks in. When I care for myself, I teach my child how to care for themselves. When my child cares for themselves, they build the strength to face anything. All right. So I hope that this has been helpful for just illustrating the importance of caring for ourselves as caregivers. And if this has maybe raised in you some thoughts about, that maybe there are some internal barriers, some things that were modeled for you that have made it hard for you, I would encourage you not to stop there, but to either connect with a therapist or do some journaling using the prompts that we talked about tonight to think about some ways that you can really prioritize your own mental health and well-being, because again, caring for ourselves means helping to set our children up for success.